Welcome to Monday, March 2nd, and it is officially March, and it's the tip-off show powered by Wager Talk TV. Thanks for joining us here. I've got Ralph Michaels on Twitter at CalSportsLV. I've got Drew Martin on Twitter at DrewMartinBets. Joining us here on this Monday, I'm Jared Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at Jared Lee Smith. Fun, slim pickings on the college basketball card today, but we're going to take you through and get you set for all the matchups. Before we get started, I want to fill you in on the coupon for today. The coupon is Prez Madness, and you can get the rest of Lawrence Presman's college basketball season. $80 off the regular price. You can now get it for $199. And Prez is hot, 14-4 over his last 18, and he's 12-3 on college basketball side. So let's bring in the gang. Ralph, I'll start with you. How was the weekend, bud?
Weekend was okay. Couple tough beats, couple lucky wins, and when they even out, it's going great. So, I didn't have any of the teams that got upset, and there weren't any huge surprises over the weekend. I mean, when we get to look at the upsets, the biggest upset of the weekend was Texas over Texas Tech as an 11.5-point dog.
Good stuff. Drew, what's going on, buddy? How's your Monday treating you so far?
It's going good, Jared. Fun weekend on and off the court, if you will. And, XFL was good as well. Always nice to be in sunny Las Vegas, man. And happy to be on this show with you and get after these games, buddy.
Yeah, good stuff. So our top matchups tonight, there's really not a lot to get to, but two big ranked matchups on the card, which we're going to break down in just a minute. Texas Tech is at Baylor, and then, of course, you've got the North Carolina rivalry in the ACC, North Carolina State at Duke. But before we get started with the action going on today, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Wager Talk TV, and also don't forget to check out our homepages as well, wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com. So let's start with what we saw from the weekend. Ralph, we did see a few upsets over the weekend. I think the one that really stuck out to me was yesterday. I was surprised to see St. John's do what they did to Creighton, but Creighton's defense was certainly suspect. St. John's made a ton of threes. Johnnies were 5.5-point home dogs. They won that game by 20. And then on Saturday, you had Texas as an 11.5-point dog, winning by 10 over Texas Tech. So you did have some, intriguing upsets over the weekend. Anything else that stuck out to you?
Well, we're going to be talking about Baylor coming up here, and I guess you could say, is Baylor reeling because they lost 2 of their last 3. But, I think if you look at that TCU update, it was more Desmond Bain having a big day, going 5 of 8 for 3 points and just pulling it away late. So, we'll talk about Baylor in a bit. But Drew, 28 upsets again. So that's a couple weeks ago. I think we had 29. So for those upsets are by 2.5 or more. So there was 131 games. It takes all the regular rotation games plus the added games. On Saturday, there were 131 games, and 28 of them were an upset of dogs of 2.5 or more. So you had a decent amount of dogs winning outright.
Sorry, Cal, if you were talking to me, it was just breaking up a little bit, man. I couldn't really understand you.
No, well, I was just talking about the number of upsets on Saturday. You had mentioned last week how many are there, and there are 28 upsets of dogs or 2.5 or more. So, as we look at the largest covers as well, you'll see that it's split. The first 3 are Saturdays. The ATS is the green. The over is my old-fashioned. Blue means over because it's sky. Brown means dirt because it's under. So the Saturday games, you see American Holy Cross, Maine, Maryland, Baltimore County, and Delaware State, all added teams. On Sunday, the biggest covers, you mentioned the Johnnies, Florida International against Charlotte, and St. Louis against Rhode Island. That's a big win for the Billikens.
Yeah, that St. Louis game, that was surprising to me, man. I'd probably throw that one out. It's the most surprising. Other than that, the most surprising for me happened on the gridiron in the XFL in a couple wild plays there. But overall, man, no disagreements here, Cal.
Yeah, I think one of the ones that stuck out to me, this was actually one of my bad beats, Ralph, and I'm curious your thoughts, big picture with this conference. But I had Iona -2.5 against Niagara, and they had that game won until the end, and then it just kind of fell apart for the Gales in overtime there. And that's on your sheet as one of the biggest overs of the day, and I guess that's what happens when games go to overtime. But that game was a high tempo game. It does seem like Iona is starting to figure things out from a standpoint of getting some of that form from last season. Of course, they went to the NCAA tournament. They've been 4 years in a row, and it does seem like that they're playing a little bit better now that they've had a solid couple of months without their head coach, Tim Kluse. Unfortunate situation with him being sidelined this year with a medical situation. But Iona seems to be getting hot at the right time, and that's always an intriguing conference once we get the tournament time. But a little bit down this year, the Metro Atlantic.
Yeah, I was on Iona as well, and I've been on Iona a couple times.
Yeah.
And I know you used him as the best bet on Thursday when they beat Canisius. I will tell you this, Jared, because I was watching it, the play-by-play. You and I were both on Iona -2.5, and Niagara had the ball down 3 with 2.8 seconds to go. They came down, hit the 3 to force overtime. So. Yeah. It's about as bad of a beat as you're going to get.
Yeah, that one was a tough one. But the good news is that was actually my only loss of the weekend. I had a very good weekend. I had the Johnnies yesterday, which was a nice pick. And then I had some live betting on Saturday, which was fun as well. As we kind of get into some of these top performances from the weekend, I'll tell you what, Hofstra's starting to pique my interest a little bit. They won the Colonial over the weekend, the regular season. Very tough conference, though, that Colonial. And Eli Pemberton had a huge game. He had 35 points in 31 minutes against James Madison. I mean, Hofstra, it seems like every year Hofstra gets kind of to the mountaintop, but they just can't put their flag in the summit. Ralph, is this the year that the Pride finally punched their ticket and get back to the tournament?
I guess. William and Mary's had their ups and downs. They started out, and Towson's been the same way. Delaware's coming on hot as well.
Yeah.
So, it's still, to me, it's a toss-up. But, what stood out to me is, we saw San Diego State lose to UNLV, then struggle against Colorado State and be down by 6 or 7 at Nevada. And look at the cream rises and Malachi Flynn.
Yeah.
40 minutes. He played every minute of that game, 36 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. And, for those that watch the show, whenever we talk USC, Joe Ranieri and I used to just call him OO, the big freshman center, because we couldn't pronounce him. So now we have another OO from FIU leading the way against Charlotte. So you'll see 19 points and 12 rebounds and 4 blocks. What a performance in that win for against Charlotte.
I'm going to try to pronounce that game just for fun, or try to pronounce the name. Osamwen Oshage. Why not? Right? Maybe.
And you know what? It sounds right to me because I did not listen to the game to hear how to pronounce it.
I didn't either. Drew, the other game that stood out to me actually, and it was involving the hat, the teams of the hat you're wearing right now. I think Kentucky's starting to come on in a good time. Auburn hung with the Wildcats in that game. Tough environment at Rupp Arena. It was close to the first half. And then Kentucky pulled away late. They covered, I want to say, by a point, maybe the hook. Your thoughts on the SEC? I think Kentucky climbing the rankings, certainly an intriguing play in the futures market as well.
Yeah, pretty much played out kind of how I thought. And, we've talked about it on the show a bunch. Betting on Kentucky towards the end of the season into March is usually a way to make some money. And talking about John Calipari's teams, well coached, they get better as the season goes on. Auburn away from Auburn Arena, still, not the same team overall. So not a team I'm looking to bet on when they are away from home, and we'll see how that continues in the SEC tournament and in the March Madness here. But overall, yeah, I believe actually that game, the odds makers had it pinned right on, like 1 point off, if not it hit on the number sidewise. Yeah. And totals wise. So, I wasn't involved in that. But as a fan, always tough to see Auburn go down, but kind of the way it played out the way I thought it would.
Hey, Drew, I have a question for you, Drew. You're our Mr. Auburn guy, and we know you follow him and you pay attention to him. What do you think their chances are going to be in the Bridgestone Arena in Tennessee for the SEC tournament? We're talking neutral settings. You've talked about their home road dichotomy so much.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating question, and it's going to be a key to the handicap for sure. I'm not necessarily looking to bet on them. I mean, I think that they have a puncher's chance, as athletic as they are, a well-coached team. And everybody's kind of away from home, if you will. And it could go their way, but I don't necessarily have them circled as bet on. I really don't, Cal. And the reason being, they're not as good as last year. So I think they're kind of getting a lot of this public attention here as we come towards March. And truth is that offense just isn't as potent as it was last year. And that's the main reason why.
Yeah, I remember when I was looking at the KenPom numbers for Auburn, and I love to compare the Final Four teams from last year and where their KenPom numbers finished. Auburn was a top 5 offense this year. They are out of the top 40. So a different offense for Auburn this season. They've lost their last 3 road games. They do have another road game at Tennessee to close the season this Saturday. Before we get to the market movers, I want to touch on the Big Ten because I think what we're seeing now is that elite level of play really start to translate to a lot of these Big Ten teams. We saw Michigan State with a huge road win at Maryland this weekend. We saw Ohio State with a big win over Michigan. We saw Wisconsin with a big win over Minnesota, and that game was a lot closer than a lot of the experts thought. In my mind, we do have an elite conference in college basketball. It's the Big Ten. I think they're going to get 8, maybe 9 teams in. They had the most non-conference wins of any conference during the early part of the season. I think Michigan State, Ohio State, I would even throw Illinois and Penn State in there, and obviously Michigan as well, and Wisconsin as teams that could not only be Sweet 16 teams, but maybe Final Four teams. Ralph, I'll start with you. The Big Ten, top to bottom, do you see it emerging as that premier conference right now in the final week of the regular season?
Oh, there's no question it's the premier conference. Though, it just depends on how much teams beat each other up. And I'll tell you what, if I'm Maryland and, let's say you're going through the bracket and the seedings are set up, if you have to play like in Indiana and then a Purdue and then a Wisconsin and then a Michigan State, I don't even want to go to the finals. I don't want to get beat up against 4 physical defenses like that back-to-back days and then turn around and have to play 4 days later. I would rather just lose the Big Ten tournament, take that couple extra days rest, don't get beat up against big physical teams, and be fresh for that Thursday or Friday game.
Yeah, it's a good point, Drew. Is there one team in the Big Ten that you would think is either a sleeper, a dark horse, or the front runner right now to win that conference tournament next week in Indianapolis?
Nothing I feel like, really confident in laying a futures bet or, putting any big time money on, Jared. I really don't. And sorry, I don't have a better answer for you. I just think that conference, I agree with you, Jared. It's a strong conference, top to bottom, maybe outside of the bottom too. There's a lot of strong teams there that are going to be making a push towards March Madness. And, I really can't pinpoint on one team. A lot of people talk about Michigan State and good guard play, well coached. When are they going to turn it around? Could they? Absolutely, they could. Will they? I'm not confident in saying they will. And I think this Big Ten tournament, a lot of teams can win it. A lot of teams going after it, and for seeding, it's huge. But to pinpoint one team, I'm going to be like, I'm betting on this team down the stretch. I really don't have one.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick one today, and I want to see what the matchups are, but I think Michigan State's really percolating at the right time right now. And Cassius Winston and Xavier Tillman, I think, are as good of a high-low combo as you'll find in the country, besides maybe Devon Dotson and Azubuike at Kansas. So I would say Michigan State right now would be my pick, not only to win the Big Ten title, but to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. But it'll be very fascinating at Bankers Life Fieldhouse next week, the end of next week, as we do get started with the big-time conference tournament. We do have a couple of big-time conference matchups tonight. Very thin card, but I want to get to some market movers. Not a lot of market to talk about tonight, which is why I'm not surprised that we're seeing some serious movement in the totals in the 2 marquee games. We'll start with the ACC matchup, NC State-Duke. We saw this total open at 151, and we've seen, Ralph, I saw you post the trends earlier about why the over would be a good play in this game in terms of the trends, but we're seeing a lot of movement towards that. Right now I'm seeing 153s at a lot of books across town. Your thoughts on the total tonight at Cameron?
Well, you talked about a light card. There's 3 regularly lined teams, and all 3, the overs have moved up at least a couple points. So, what do you have? This is March. You have the public getting involved in betting. And what is the public going to do? Games are on TV. They're going to bet the over. So I think, now's the time where you're going to get some value on unders moving forward as more and more of the public gets involved. And, like we see when the public bets, they're going to bet favorites and they're going to bet overs.
Yeah, Drew, we're also seeing the Texas Tech Baylor over creep up from 128 to 130. And it kind of would it surprised me when I saw that movement, because obviously we definitely take Baylor and Texas Tech as defensive-minded teams. What we saw from Baylor over the weekend was they gave up 75 to TCU. We haven't seen Baylor allow that many points since early in the non-conference season. It's been a while since the Bears have really been exposed defensively like that. Are you surprised that this Texas Tech Baylor line, the total creeping up as it is?
I am surprised, absolutely, and we forgot to talk about TCU and Baylor. I guess I did in terms of a surprising finish there on the weekend card. But yeah, because I mean these two teams, at least in regulation, and then if you bet an under and get OT'd, it's just kind of part of the business. You got to move on from that. But there isn't, they're not going to get to 70 possessions, Jared. They're going to have to go. Point per possession is going to have to be high here if you're going to want to reach this total. And both of them talk about efficient defenses. You're going to get it on the defensive side. So this is a game where, you're making me bet the total. I'm going to wait a little bit, watch this public bet it up, and then I'll be on the under, man.
Drew, I've got a question for you as well. Sorry, Jared.
No, you're okay.
I know you use a lot of totals in college hoops.
Mm-hmm.
And how often, or if you do at all, when you're looking at these totals and you're thinking about a close game that has potential, how often do you use first half numbers? Do you bet them personally or that you give out to your clients?
I bet them personally. Now, I come from kind of the learning group of watch out on halftime totals in college basketball, just because, clients, not all the clients out there get them. So I haven't really been, as far as a service standpoint, putting them out just because I'm not used to it. And I know a lot of clients can't bet it. But I personally, yes, I bet the first half unders, correlated with my full game unders, just because a foul fest at the end does happen every now and again. And by this time in the season, Ralph, the teams that I'm betting on, I've usually, watched them play a lot before in the past and kind of have them jotted down as when they start fouling to kind of watch out for that situation, or even use it to your advantage and bet the over. But to clients, no, I usually don't put out first halves, but yes, personally, I do bet them.
Just to tie a bow on that, so Baylor has only given up 75 points or more in a game twice all season. Once at TCU the other day, and the other time on a neutral court against Villanova, they gave up 78 points in a win. That's it. Everything else for Baylor this season has been 75 or under, and that just speaks to how good and how consistent the Bears have been this season. And we're going to get to we're going to get to them right now. Let's just go right into the top matchup. So then no, Ralph, sorry, you've got some TNA for us tonight? Anything? I know it's a light card.
Again, these are added games, but you talked about that Idaho State total moving up a few points. How about this? Idaho State is, playing Weber State. Idaho State now 11-1-1 over under their last 13 games, and Weber State 9-3 over under. So a combined 20 overs and 4 unders in that Idaho State Weber matchup. So I certainly understand that move. Duke now 18-6 over under their last 24 games. Duke has gone over 18 times, only under 6 times. Bethune-Cookman is 8 straight unders. And Alabama A&M now 2-14 over under their last 16 games.
Wow, Kyle with the stats, and that's Idaho State, the Bengals, not to be confused with the Idaho Vandals.
Vandals, right?
I know. It's funny that we actually do have 2 teams in Idaho that we will talk about regularly on the show. Something tells me pretty soon we won't be talking about Idaho teams regularly once we get into the NCAA tournament, but you never know. Okay, top matchups tonight. Obviously, not a lot to go on, but we actually do have 2 good matchups. We thank ESPN and Big Monday for giving us this fun little card that we will have tonight, a baby card, I will say. But let's start with NC State and Duke. This was obviously a blowout game on the side you would not have predicted last time. NC State won at home by 22 over Duke. Tonight it's Duke favored by double digits. Some would say maybe that's a little bit too high of a number. Drew, I'll start with you. This ACC matchup, Duke-NC State, what do you think?
Well, Duke's lost 2 in a row, 3 of their last 4. You usually don't catch the Blue Devils in this type of situation here. How does that work in handicapping, coming back home, looking to bounce back, taking advantage of an opponent that, in my opinion, they're better than? And NC State, on the other hand, they've lost, 3 of 5, but they did just beat Pittsburgh. A decent Pittsburgh team, kind of talking nicely there about Pitt. Overall, man, NC State doesn't knock down their threes. That's something I like to see against teams going up against Duke. And Duke, let's talk about it for real. I mean, they are efficient, both on the defensive side and the offensive side, and they're going to look to push the pace at home. I think that they're going to control this pace, not that NC State's really going to look to slow it down at all, and that's what kind of points me towards this over. But then again, is it kind of a square shot here on a nationally televised game as we get into March basketball? Yeah, you're kind of getting the worst of the number here. So I lean towards the over, but nothing that I bet personally here, Jared.
Ralph, what do you think?
Well,
a little too heavy tonight.
You're paying the premium, no question, if you want to back Duke. And, to answer some questions, which I figured people would have, if you guys didn't see my Twitter, I'll ask both of you guys this. Since 2010, 2010, so we're talking 10 seasons, how many times has Duke lost back-to-back games?
I think I did see this. I want to say it was either 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, it was 7. They've only lost 7 times back-to-back games. They've lost 8. They've gone 5-2 after. So we'll see what happens.
This is the 8th time. Yeah.
And the second thing I looked up since 2010, how many times has Duke been off a loss and had same season revenge? Because they're revenging the loss to NC State and they're off a loss. It's only been 6 times. 6 other times they've been off a loss with same season revenge. But again, this isn't that same Duke team of last year. This isn't that same Duke team. Yes, you have high recruits, but you don't have first and second picks in the NBA draft. So I think it's a premium. NC State did a good job on defense. I think Duke is going to be very fired up. I know some places offer the first 5 minutes or first 10 minutes or, as well as the first half. I think Duke jumps out early, and I would be more apt to bet Duke in the first half than I would for the whole game.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. And I do have a pick on this game officially that I'll give out in best bets coming up in a little bit. But first, Texas Tech and Baylor. This is a bit of an intriguing matchup for me. I think Texas Tech is a little bit better than people think, and the reason why is they're so young that it's taken them a little while to kind of reload a little bit. I think they have 3 or 4 freshmen in their rotation, and obviously losing Jarrett Culver last year hurts, and everyone was crowning Chris Beard as the coach of the year, and is kind of seeing how the other half lives this year in what's been a very top-heavy Big 12. But the Red Raiders are 7.5-point dogs tonight. We haven't seen much movement in this line. We've seen some movement in the total from 128 to 130. We mentioned that a little earlier. I lean Baylor here. I do think Baylor at home bounces back, but I'm not sold on this number. I think 7.5 is a lot of points. Drew, what do you think?
Short turnaround, both teams. It kind of makes me look towards the home team here, and that's, Baylor playing at home in Waco, obviously one of the most efficient teams on the defensive end. Offensively can be a little bit better, and like you talked about, Jared, I mean, Texas Tech, a young team, kind of circled as bet on towards the end of the season here. I do think Chris Beard is a top coach in college basketball, and he's got his team pretty efficient on the offensive end as well, given what they lost off of last year's team, and this team knocks down their free throws. So talk about, the profile of being able to stay within the number. I feel like the Red Raiders have it, and as they get towards the end of the season, I'd look to be betting on them. It's just Baylor off of a loss kind of scares me here because I'm pretty sure that they're going to be ready, motivated at home to win. It's tough to go against Baylor, man.
Yeah, all of a sudden Baylor's lost 2 of 3 after basically not losing all season long. Ralph, I think the total is it's very interesting that it got bumped up 2 points. I would have not have expected there to be a lot of action on the over in this game, considering we are facing off against 2 under teams and 2 teams with such good defensive efficiency ratings. What are your initial thoughts on this Big 12 battle tonight in Waco?
Well, yeah, I like Baylor first half, and I do like under for the whole game. And, Jared, you talked about Texas Tech, and I remembered reading, notes, preseason notes, that Chris Beard, in each of his first 3 years at Texas Tech, had at least 3 senior starters. So very much like those Villanova squads.
Yeah.
This year, he has 1 senior starter only in Holyfield at center. Now, Jamius Ramsey isn't a freshman. He doesn't play like that. He is a freshman, but he doesn't play like a freshman. But still, you have a junior, freshman, and sophomore, and you're starting 5. So that's why the offense is only number 51 in far as efficiency. They still play defense. They're number 9. But when you have that young of a team and you have 3 underclassmen that are your main scorers, that's why you can play Texas at home and lose by 10, which is shocking. That's why you could play Oklahoma and lose by 14, because you have such uneven performances with the young staff. So, I agree with you. The Texas Tech team I thought was a buy sign, but in the last 5 games, I mean, they've played the bottom of the Big 12. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Iowa State, Oklahoma, and Texas. Those are the bottom teams, and yet you're only 2 and 3. So I think we're seeing some of those young kids who aren't used to starting. Now we're 29 games into the season. I think we're starting to see some fatigue from them. And, like I said, I like Baylor first half. I like the under, and I probably would play Baylor for the whole game as well. I mean, if I had to pick a side, I would clearly play Baylor for the whole game as well.
Yeah, I think I like Baylor in this matchup too. I'm not running to the window to bet on the Bears tonight. I'm a little bit cautious that they have also hit a bit of a wall because they were playing so well for so long, and they're not as efficient offensively as you would like an elite level team to be. And usually teams like that go into slumps. And when they go into slumps, they usually last more than one game. And we've seen it now for a couple of games. And we also saw their defense not play well this weekend, which is something that is a major shot across the bow for a team that relies so heavily on their defense. I lean Baylor, but I'm not going to get to the window. I will get to the window on this pick. So I know it's probably the squarest play on the board tonight, but I love the over in this Duke NC State game. That's my best bet for tonight. The trends point in that direction. I think Duke is going to, if Duke sees a nail tonight, they are going to be the hammer because they really were embarrassed in Raleigh. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago. That was not a fun result. Anytime you go on the road in conference play and you get your butt whooped like Duke did against an in-state opponent, they will be looking for some revenge tonight. So if there's a 90 or 100 spot out there for Duke to score, I think they're going to go for the kill tonight. And I do think NC State's offense has been a little better of late, so I think they can keep up. 151.5 is where I got this. We've seen it go all the way to 153. I think it's still good to play over at 153. So that is my best bet here for Monday night. Ralph, best bet for tonight. What do you got, brother?
I am going to one of the added games. First game on the board, 308-176, NC Central -5. They struggle on offense, NC Central does, but they got a Cleveland State transfer, Jabari Blunt, who's their leading scorer, so I've paid attention to him this year. They're tied for first place. They have covered 10 straight games at home. They're 14-0 straight up at home, 10 straight covers. Bethune-Cookman is a team where, you read the reports and Bethune-Cookman's hot. Well, they're only hot because they played the bottom 3 teams in the MEAC, or 3 of the bottom 4 teams in the MEAC the last couple games. I think the number's cheap at NC Central -5.
It's a light night on the card when we're giving out MEAC best bets. Drew, what do you got for us, brother?
I'm going to go NC State Duke to the over as well, 152.5. If you shop around, you can get it both offshore and here in Vegas. So I'll take that, I guess, half point off of the what seems to be consensus line there, 152.5 to the over. NC State versus Duke, Jared.
Yeah, I think that's the most. I think that's the safest play on the board tonight, and it also could be the squares play. But sometimes the squares, sometimes those tickets cash as well. Good stuff. Monday night. Again, not the deepest card. We will be back tomorrow, and we're going to have a whole lot more action. We also have some conference tournament games beginning tomorrow as well, which I'm sure the boys would like to touch on. Ralph Michaels, follow him on Twitter at CalSportsLV. Drew Martin, follow him on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. And of course, you can follow me, Jared Smith, on Twitter at Jared Lee Smith. Don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Wager Talk TV and head to our website for all the edges, all the angles, all the picks. It's all there. wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com. Thanks for joining us here on the Tip-Off Show. We will see you tomorrow, and may the best bets win. Gentlemen, good night.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you in 23.
All right, guys.